When the P-38 Lightning first slashed across Pacific skies, Japanese pilots didn't know whether to laugh or worry. With its bizarre twin-boom silhouette and central cockpit pod, it looked like an alien craft had wandered into the war. American crews proudly called it the fork-tailed devil, but that name actually came from the Luftwaffe, whose fear of the lightning was already legend. Soon, rumors of this strange machine began filtering into Japanese intelligence reports. Was it truly a game-changer, or just another heavy, clumsy American fighter? From long-range ambushes to chilling pilot testimonies, this is the shocking truth Japan discovered. Historical context. By the time the P-38 entered Pacific service in late 1942, the Imperial Japanese Navy Air Service stood at the height of its confidence. The A6M0 had dominated early campaigns, downing Allied aircraft in terrifying numbers and cementing Japan's belief in its own aerial supremacy. The Americans, however, had quietly been developing something different. Not a nimble turn fighter, but a high-speed, high-altitude predator designed for range and hitting power. Lockheed's Lightning was already proving itself in Europe as both a long-range escort and a deadly interceptor. In the Pacific, its range offered something the Americans desperately needed: the ability to engage the Japanese far from their bases, over open water, and escort bombers on missions deep into enemy territory. From the Japanese perspective, this odd new machine was a puzzle. Their doctrine was built on close-range, maneuver-oriented combat, not speed duels at altitude. Early intelligence downplayed the Lightning as another heavy, fuel-laden brute that would falter in a dogfight. But when the first P-38s arrived over the Solomons, chasing Zeros from impossible distances and returning to base unscathed, it became clear this was not just another American fighter. It was something designed to fight a different kind of war. Technical specifications. The P-38 Lightning didn't just look different, it was different. Its twin Allison V1710 turbo-supercharged engines gave it a top speed of over 400 miles per hour, a figure that stunned Japanese analysts who were used to encountering American fighters 50 to 80 miles per hour slower than their own Zeros. With a combat range exceeding 1,000 miles, it could patrol vast stretches of ocean and still have fuel to chase, fight, and return. Its armament was concentrated in the nose, a single 20mm Hispano cannon and 4.50 caliber Browning machine guns, meaning every round traveled the same trajectory. Unlike wing-mounted guns that converged at a set distance, the Lightning could shred a target from much farther out. Japanese pilots would later note the terrifying accuracy of its fire. Fully loaded, the P-38 weighed over 17,000 pounds, more than triple a Zero's weight. Yet its tricycle landing gear and counter-rotating propellers eliminated torque roll, giving it exceptional stability in dives and climbs. While the Zero's light frame sacrificed durability for agility, the P-38 could take heavy damage and still limp home, a fact that would leave Japanese aces both frustrated and grudgingly impressed. What initially looked like a clumsy giant was, in reality, a long-range assassin built for a war Japan wasn't prepared to fight. Development drama. The P-38 Lightning's journey from concept to combat was anything but straightforward. When Lockheed first unveiled its radical twin-boom layout in 1937, many within the US Army Air Corps were skeptical. It was unlike any fighter they had ever seen, a complex, futuristic design in an era still transitioning from biplanes. Critics called it over-engineered and questioned whether such an unconventional aircraft could ever be practical for frontline service. Those doubts deepened once the prototypes took to the skies. Early test flights revealed a litany of issues: engine overheating during extended climbs, cockpit frosting that left pilots flying blind at high altitude, and troubling instability in high-speed dives. The Lightning was the first American fighter to experience compressibility, a mysterious aerodynamic phenomenon at the time. In dives past 500 miles per hour, the controls would stiffen, trapping pilots in a near-vertical descent. Several promising test pilots lost their lives before engineers devised dive recovery flaps to solve the problem. Weight posed another challenge. Every improvement, heavier armor plating, self-sealing fuel tanks, expanded armament, pushed the P-38 further from the nimble, turn-and-burn fighter profile the Air Corps was accustomed to. Some officials argued to scrap the program entirely and focus on proven single-engine types like the P-40 or P-39. But Lockheed refused to quit. Engineers refined the turbo superchargers, improved cooling systems, and optimized the airframe for high-altitude stability. Gradually, the Lightning evolved into a machine that could fly higher, faster, and farther than any Japanese fighter in service. By late 1942, when the Pacific War demanded an aircraft with extreme range and devastating firepower, the P-38 was ready. It wasn't flawless, but in the sprawling expanses of ocean combat, its uniqueness wasn't a liability, it was a decisive advantage. Combat performance. The Lightning's first clashes with Japanese fighters in 1942 and early 1943 were eye-opening. Japanese pilots initially treated it with the same disdain they had for other American aircraft: heavy, slow to turn, and easily baited into close-quarters duels. But the P-38 didn't play by those rules. American pilots quickly learned to fight the Zero on their own terms. Using boom and zoom tactics, they dove from high altitude, unleashed devastating nose-mounted fire, and climbed away before the slower Zero could respond. The Lightning's speed meant it could disengage at will, something that infuriated Japanese aces who relied on opponents being trapped in prolonged dogfights. Perhaps most alarming for Japanese commanders was its ability to escort bombers far beyond Zero range. Missions that once left bombers unprotected now had a wall of Lightnings clearing the skies. Reports from Rabaul and Bougainville began noting that the P-38 could arrive over target areas without warning and linger there longer than expected. The Lightning's most famous moment came in April 1943 during Operation Vengeance, the mission to intercept and kill Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto. That single operation proved to Japan that the P-38 wasn't just another fighter, it was a strategic weapon capable of reaching into the heart of their war plans. The Japanese assessment. Captured Japanese intelligence reports paint a fascinating picture of evolving respect for the P-38 Lightning. In early 1943, it was brushed off in official evaluations as an overbuilt bomber escort with limited turning ability, the kind of bulky, speed-focused machine Japanese tacticians believed their nimble Zeros could outfly with ease. But as months passed, that dismissive tone began to fade. By late 1943, internal memos carried a new warning: a dangerous high-speed attacker requiring extreme caution. Pilots returning from encounters with the Lightning reported its greatest danger wasn't in a turning duel, it was in how it avoided one entirely. Its blistering diving speed meant that once a P-38 was on your tail, escape was nearly impossible. One Zero ace recorded in his diary, "It comes from above like a hawk, strikes, and is gone before your guns can speak." The Lightning's long range added another layer of frustration. Japanese aircrews described the unsettling experience of having it appear seemingly from nowhere, engage briefly, and then vanish into the clouds, only to reappear minutes later from an entirely different direction. This unpredictability created a lingering mental strain. forcing pilots to remain on high alert even when the skies seemed clear. By 1944, the P-38's reputation among Japanese aviators had shifted from curiosity to calculated threat. It wasn't invincible. Experienced Zero pilots could still exploit its weaknesses, but it demanded respect every time it appeared. In the eyes of Japanese intelligence, it was no longer just a foreign oddity. It was a priority threat that required tactical adaptation and a stark reminder of the limitations of Japan's short-range fighters in the vast, unforgiving airspace of the Pacific. Tactical innovation. If the P-38's engineering impressed Japanese analysts, its tactics downright unsettled them. Unlike early war American pilots who had tried and failed to match the Zero in tight-turning dogfights, Lightning pilots learned quickly that speed, altitude, and surprise were their greatest allies. From the moment the P-38 entered the Pacific, squadron leaders drilled boom and zoom attacks into muscle memory. Dive at blistering speed, fire a precise burst, then climb back to safety before the Zero could react. This approach negated the Zero's greatest advantage, maneuverability. Japanese pilots who tried to chase a retreating Lightning often found themselves stalling out or losing sight of their quarry entirely. The P-38's turbo-supercharged engines allowed it to maintain performance at altitudes where the Zero struggled, giving American pilots the choice of when and where to engage. Team tactics also evolved rapidly. Two ship elements coordinated attacks so one Lightning could draw Japanese fighters into a climb, only for another to dive in unseen. The nose-mounted armament meant these slashing passes could be deadly even from longer distances, forcing Japanese pilots to break off before closing in. For the Japanese, this was infuriating. The very idea of refusing an honorable turning duel went against their combat ethos, and Lightning pilots exploited that mindset mercilessly. The result was an aircraft and tactic pairing that undermined not just Japanese aircraft performance, but the cultural expectations their pilots carried into every fight. By mid-1943, Tokyo's airplanners were no longer dismissing the Lightning as just another American brute. They were studying how to counter it. Psychological impact. If the P-38 changed how the Japanese fought, it also changed how they felt about fighting. Early in the war, Japanese pilots approached American fighters with confidence, even arrogance. The Zero's agility and the pilots' combat experience had given them a sense of near invincibility. But the Lightning was a different kind of enemy. It didn't come to play by the same rules. Reports from Japanese squadrons in the Solomons and New Guinea began to describe a creeping unease. The P-38's long range meant it could appear where it wasn't expected, deep behind enemy lines. Its speed and climb rate meant that once it was on you, there was little chance to shake it. Pilots began speaking of a double-edged fear of being caught by a P-38 and fear of missing the chance to strike before it vanished. Psychologists today might call it anticipatory anxiety. For Japanese pilots, it translated into hesitation, that deadly pause before committing to an attack. The Lightning's ruggedness made matters worse. Many Japanese veterans recalled pouring rounds into a P-38, only to watch it dive away, trail smoke, and somehow keep flying. In contrast, a Zero couldn't survive that kind of punishment. As this psychological shift took hold, even veteran Japanese aces began making more conservative choices in combat, avoiding risky maneuvers that might leave them exposed. By 1944, the Lightning wasn't just a physical threat. It had become a mental one, eroding the confidence that had been the foundation of Japanese aerial dominance. Legacy and impact. The P-38's legacy wasn't measured solely in kill counts, though it racked up impressive numbers against both Japanese and German aircraft. Its true impact lay in how it reshaped the air war. In the Pacific, it forced Japan to confront the uncomfortable truth that speed, firepower, and range could outweigh maneuverability in modern combat. For the Americans, it validated the idea that aircraft didn't need to be the best in every performance category to win. They needed to be matched to the right tactics. The Lightning also played a pivotal role in attrition. By enabling long-range bomber escorts and deep-penetration fighter sweeps, it contributed to the destruction of Japan's irreplaceable veteran pilot corps. By 1944, the average Japanese naval aviator had a fraction of the flight hours their pre-war counterparts enjoyed, and this drop in experience accelerated Japan's decline in air power. Technologically, the P-38 influenced fighter design for decades. Its emphasis on concentrated firepower, high-speed engagement, and pilot survivability found echoes in post-war US aircraft like the F-86 Sabre and even modern multi-role fighters. Perhaps most importantly, the P-38 proved that perception could be as potent a weapon as any gun or engine. The Japanese never fully overcame the psychological edge the Lightning gained over them. Even today, in airshow displays and veterans' memoirs, the P-38 is remembered not just as a machine, but as a symbol, the fork-tailed predator that rewrote the rules of the Pacific Air War. In the end, the P-38 Lightning's greatest victory wasn't just in the skies, it was in the minds of those who faced it. What began as a curiosity, a strange twin-boomed silhouette on the horizon, became a force that challenged Japan's tactics, tested their nerves, and exposed the limits of their once unshakable confidence. It proved that war isn't won solely by the best machine on paper, but by the right machine in the right hands, guided by innovation and discipline. Today, only a handful of Lightnings remain airworthy, their distinctive hum still turning heads at air shows. For historians and veterans alike, they stand as a reminder that in aerial combat, adaptation often trumps perfection. The P-38 didn't just fight the war, it helped change the way wars would be fought forever. If you want more untold stories of legendary aircraft, be sure to subscribe.